I was going to see my friend because I was due to immigrate on the Friday over to Canada. I left my job, I packed my suitcase and I was ready to go. And then this accident happened. The air ambulance, they came out to help me. And if it wasn't for them, then I wouldn't be sat here today.
The prince fading like the rest of us.
Well, I can
Yes, it is.
yeah, they did that, didn't they?
Used to have 150,000.
Well, I can remember getting a call, telephone call, probably from Jerry, I would think.
I was looking to explore the possibilities of having an air ambulance operating in Norfolk.
I was aware that because we had no money, that it was extremely difficult to ask Jerry to provide any sort of service. I think it was really just by a lot of networking and talking to people and realising that there was public support for a project of this sort.
I never ever expected it to develop in the way it has, to be so successful.
Good morning, East Anglian Air Ambulance. How can I help you? Jen Easton speaking. You had to really be there to believe it. I mean, when I sort of explained to people how we started, they look at me as if I've got two heads, saying, no, it can't possibly have been like that, but that is the way it was.
Eventually, we decided that we could start 1 day a week, and I think that was in 2001, which we did on a Friday.
It's a long process and there were a lot of hurdles in the way, but we got there.
We have to remember we hadn't got any money. I think we had £10,000 to our name.
When the charity first started, it was operating with a single paramedic on an aircraft 1 day a week out of Norwich.
It wasn't until we got the sort of AA support and we actually started to go 7 days a week that I thought, my God, I think we're going to make it. Brilliant.
In the very early days, I think it did what it said on the tin. It's the East Anglian Air Ambulance, and it was basically a flying road ambulance. 2 paramedics on board, terrific people, but really not a lot of capability beyond what the road ambulance could offer, other than access to remote locations and speed. We moved up to 2 helicopters operating from 2 separate bases, which enabled us to expand our geographical coverage from Norfolk and Suffolk to add in Cambridgeshire and Bedfordshire.
In the last 20 years or so, there's been a significant number of developments with aircraft safety, aircraft performance and size.
In 2013, becoming the first air ambulance charity in the UK to secure approval from the Civil Aviation Authority to operate to unsurveyed sites at night was a huge step forward.
We're flying 2 of the most up-to-date, technically, and most appropriate aircraft.
That's really moved us on to become a highly sophisticated air ambulance operation.
So the differences between the critical care paramedics and the paramedics you find on road ambulances is all around the skill set and the education background of the critical care paramedics. They've got years of experience before they come into this environment.
On the medical side, the enormity of that, how far that's come, is just amazing, totally amazing.
For me, the really significant change for the charity was in 2010 when we moved to carrying doctors on board.
We had lovely one-piece jumpsuits, which I still quite miss. Yeah, we had very little kit really then. It was just whatever you could cram in your pockets really. So things have really moved on dramatically in terms of becoming a proper subspecialty, so that now we can really bring intensive care to the roadside or the bedside.
Now, the fact that now the treatment actually starts at the scene is absolutely brilliant. It's something we never thought of in the first place.
We're essentially bringing the entire hospital now to the patient.
East Anglia Air Ambulance came into my life when I needed them most, back in August of 2012. I was going kite surfing, I'd launched my kite and I got caught by a gust of wind, which lifted me up into the air probably about 100 feet. When I came down, I came into a brick wall. I smashed my feet up really badly and I broke several ribs. But the main injury was I transected the aorta, which is the main artery from the heart. The air ambulance arrived and I had collapsed lungs from the blood and They managed to sort all that out. They put chest drains in, and they got me put me into induced coma and got me to Addenbrooke's Hospital with a fighting chance for recovery.
So when the red phone rings, there's a patient essentially somewhere in the area that's awaiting our doctor and paramedic.
We're aiming to be off the ground in 2 to 3 minutes of the call coming in, if at all possible.
It's well rehearsed, it's well drilled, and we do it every single day, which means there's no panic about it. There shouldn't be any raised adrenaline because this is our job.
If the patient is very seriously ill or injured, then there tends to be a lot of things that happen in parallel, and that's when it's really useful to have drilled and practiced as a team, because you don't have to talk to each other very much, you just get on with the necessary. Once we've done whatever we need to do for the patient, then we'll make a plan about loading them into the helicopter, and then off we go.
Whatever it is, under any circumstances, anybody could become a patient of East Anglian Air Ambulance.
I was a pedestrian at a lay-by on the A14.
I was involved in a high-speed car accident.
Having been out on my bike, I was involved in a collision.
I went out for a walk with my wife.
And unfortunately got hit by a lorry travelling at speed.
My car left the road and hit a tree.
Collapsed with a cardiac arrest.
The air ambulance arrived. They dealt with me. They flew me to Addenbrooke's.
Stabilised me for 90 minutes before flying me to Basildon.
I was treated at the scene by the East Anglia Air Ambulance with life-changing injuries.
I was going down the road on my scooter, and a blue car impacted me on the right-hand side. I went flying, opened my eyes, all conscious, and I panicked, so I flipped my helmet off. I thought, I'm alright, I could get up, you know? But from what I've been told, my leg was like a U-bend. I broke my femur twice and I bled a litre of blood internally. And they decided to send the air ambulance because it was the quickest option for me to get to hospital.
One of the cases I most remember, it was a young man who'd taken an overdose of painkillers, and he got slightly confused, and the more confused he got, the more painkillers he took, until in the end he stopped breathing.
And we are down, you are get out. Only one on the ground.
And literally as we arrived, we were first on scene, his heart had stopped as well, so he was very blue. It was quite clear he was in cardiorespiratory arrest. And we resuscitated him.
We do have a rhythm compatible with life.
Worked out what had happened, were able to reverse the cause by giving him a drug called naloxone, and he kind of woke up, and he did really, really well. But the thing that really did it for me was when we saw the film, and I hadn't seen the bit until I literally saw it on the telly, was he'd got a young daughter and he was playing in the garden with the daughter saying, you know, I just want to thank the air ambulance because without them I wouldn't have had this. So those instances where you personally make a massive difference are actually very few and far between. It's always teamwork, always teamwork.
That is just what the East Anglian Air Ambulance is all about. It's just the passion that and commitment that people put into it.
About 4 years ago, we introduced a patient aftercare service so that we can actually engage with the patient in hospital and critically, when they leave hospital, to help them get back on their feet figuratively and literally.
I reached out to the air ambulance because I wanted to meet the guys that helped me. I knew certain parts of what happened, but in my head there was a large gap.
A lot of those patients do come back and ask us about what we were doing on the day. They come and meet us. They might even come and see some of the photos that the team have taken.
They responded with open arms. It helped me no end.
In 2002, she spooked at something, the horse spooked at something, so she started trotting back to me and I could see Emma was leaning over. She'd lost her balance and I was standing at the edge and the horse trotted up to me and then turned. Emma just plonked on the floor And I just thought, okay, she's going to get up. And then I sort of looked, I thought, no, something drastically wrong here. They said, we're going to call the air ambulance. And I thought, back then, I had never heard of the air ambulance until about 15 minutes later, this great big yellow thing dropped down. And then they flew her to Norfolk and Norwich Hospital. The doctors did 2 more brain scans. And at lunchtime on the Tuesday, they called us in. They called us in and said that there was no brain function at all. And yes, it was just, world came crashing down, basically. I would not have not gone to the air ambulance. It was difficult, very difficult, but it was my saviour. I think it got me through my day by day. I think I can remember saying to them, we need to deal as much with the people who haven't survived as well as the ones who have survived. The memorial walk was brought in probably about 5, maybe 6 years ago now. Originally, it was for people who had been airlifted and hadn't survived. People like myself that went along, and it's really a day to be with other people like yourself.
I think that the last couple of years and the year ahead are really, again, significant milestones. We'll be able to say in a year's time that we've completed the development of a 24/7 helicopter emergency medical service capability.
24/7 is going to be a huge advancement for East Anglian Air Ambulance, and frankly a huge advancement for everyone that lives here in the East. So currently we do cover the area 24 hours but by car. But if the patient's geographically disparate, so if they're in the middle of nowhere and we need to get them to a specialist hospital quickly, having a helicopter that's always going to be available to pick up the patient and fly them to that specialist hospital, I think that could be a game changer for them.
And that's the core of what we do. But around the outside of that core, we're now adding first aid, if you like, helping people to be in better condition when they become our patients. But also the aftercare, where we're adding that layer of care to get them back onto their feet quicker than if they were left to their own devices. Obviously, a charity relies entirely on the generosity of the supporters, and it's the generosity of the supporters that have enabled us to grow the service year on year.
Wherever we are, whatever we do, if we wear our shirts, which we do when we're on duty as it were, we are ambassadors for the East Anglian Air Ambulance, whether that's at the event on the way to it or even at the chippy on the way home. It is about talking to people about the charity, reminding those who don't know or those who know, and telling those people who don't know that we don't get any government funding, we don't get any lottery funding. We're entirely dependent on the generosity of the great British public. So without us and without the whole team, we just wouldn't get that money and the service wouldn't exist.
And at the end of the day, when you come back and you've met some fantastic people, they're happy to support and to give and to donate. It's just wonderful.
I decided to do Only the Brave because at the time the air ambulance approached me and they wanted me to be the face of the campaign. And then when I thought about, I actually want to run this. It was one of the hardest things I've had to do, but it was very rewarding at the end.
This is partly to say thank you very much indeed for the generosity of the Shadwell.
I never expected the fundraising to be as successful as it is, and that's due to the real hard work of the staff and the public. It's been amazing.
I'm immensely proud of what's happened.
It's a marvellous organisation and it's full of people that really inspire me and do a great deal of work for the community, which is really uplifting. It's not something I ever feel I need to apologise to anybody for. Okay, we do have to apologise to people when we blow down their fence or pebble dash their car with a helicopter, but I have to say most people recognise that this is a really good cause.
This is the end of my very long medical career, and it's just such a joy to spend those last few years being associated with such an amazing organisation. It's wonderful.
I just want to pass on my heartfelt thanks to the public and the community out there. Without your support and your constant encouragement, we would not be able to provide this level of service to the patients that need us. So thank you very much.
You're fine. Come on. I've got lots of plans over the next couple of years. I've just purchased a piece of land that eventually I plan to build a farm shop on, and a glamping business, and a home.
My oldest son and his wife are expecting their first child and our first grandchild. I've also been able to see my youngest son, Sam, get married last year.
At the time, my son was only 1.5 years old, and my wife was 3 months pregnant with my little girl. Without the air ambulance, I would be dead. My kids would have grown up not knowing their dad.
After spending 10 months in hospital, I came home, but my life had ended so differently.
I'll never quite be the same as I was before. There's things that I won't be able to do, but I'm here. And without your support keeping the East Anglian Air Ambulance flying, that probably wouldn't be the case.
I'd like to thank all the supporters of the air ambulance. Without them, the air ambulance wouldn't be able to fly.
So for East Anglian Air Ambulance, really, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy 20th birthday.
A big happy birthday.
All our lives potentially depend on that, and some of our lives have been absolutely changed by it.
From the bottom of my heart, a massive big thank you to you all of the amazing job you do for this charity.
Keep fundraising, keep supporting, keep flying. Thank you.
I'd like to say an even bigger thank you to the people who make this service possible, and that is you, the supporter, and there's lots of you out there. So, big thank you from me, can't say it enough, and let's keep this service going between us, because you people like you make a difference.